8:30, I'd like to call to order this meeting for the Land, Water, and Forest Special Meeting. Could I have roll call, please?
John Sorowski,
Here.
Steve Carrianen,
Here.
Kay Wilson, Randy Newman. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Certification of compliance with the open meetings law.
Let the record show that this meeting was noticed to the news media as required by section 19.84 of the Wisconsin statutes and also to the public.
Thank you. Number 5, the meeting agenda is set. Number 6, public comments. At this time, members of the public will be given the opportunity to address the committee, and please adhere to the following when addressing the committee. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes or less per individual. Comments should be directed to the committee as a whole and not directed to individual committee members. And the committee cannot respond to your comments during this time. I've got about 4 of them here. We'll start with Rhonda Isold. State your name and your address, please.
My name is Rhonda Isold, address 11007 West Chief River Road in the city of Hayward. Happy Thanksgiving to y'all.
Thank you.
This is a repeat of much of what was talked before, but there are 2 major reasons why this petition should be dismissed. As you know, none of the individual petitions were notarized by any signature, even though it's required by state law, and it's discussed in detail in Chapter 4, which is called Forming the Lake District. Second reason is none of the petitions that were sent to possible signers had the legal description written on them. Again, this is a repeat from last time. There's also issues in regards to who collected the petitions. There's an email by the Secretary of the Lake Association that welcomed petitions to be emailed to her. They were likely collected by the past president of the association as well as the president of the association. And these should be individually notarized by the person who collected these petitions. Let's talk about reasons why this petition process was unfair. There are 2 properties on Callahan Lake Road that have a total of 11 possible signers, according to the criteria used to form this petition. All of those 11 people signed. Now, in addition, there are 13 properties valued over $500,000 that belong to trust funds. There are other trust funds as well, but those are the ones I documented. Those people only have a right to have 1 signature on their petition. So on the one hand, you've got 2 properties less than $200,000 valued that have 11 signers, and 13 that can only have 1 person sign per property. That's unfair. We talked about landlocked properties within the proposed Lake District. There are 8 properties on Mud Lake that are landlocked. There are 26 properties on Callahan that are landlocked. I would argue that they do not benefit from the Lake District. Properties below the dam also were included in the Lake District. There were a total of, I believe, 10. I might be a little bit off on that. They don't benefit by the Lake District because they're below the dam. To even get into the lake, they have to go over the road to get into the Lake District. A couple of statistics for you. Of the people that signed the petition, only 52% of them reside out of the state of Wisconsin. Again, 52% reside outside of the state of Wisconsin. Only 28% of the signers actually live within the Lake District. In the Lake Association, 72% of the Lake Association members have legal addresses outside of Sawyer County. 47% of those people live out of state. Talk about how the signers broke down. On Callahan Lake, there are 108 signers from 64 different properties. On Mud Lake, there were 24 signers from 14 different properties. Below the dam, there were actually 4 signers from 2 different properties. If you look at those statistics, the vast majority of the signers happen to be on Callahan Lake, not Mud Lake, and not below the dam. When you look at just the properties involved, and the owners that actually signed the petitions on those properties, only 48.1% of those properties actually have signed petitions attached to the property. That means that less than half of the property owners are interested in forming a lake district.
I gotta cut you off. You hit your 3 minutes.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving
Thanks
again.
so much. Robert Johnson?
Good morning. My name is Robert Johnson. I'm a full-time year-round resident along with my wife Tiffany. Our address is 11186 West Catbird Lane in the Callahan Shores Division off County Road B there on Callahan Mud Lakes. We oppose any and all lake districts in the county, Sawyer County, period, today, now and forever. You should be talking about banning lake districts in your county, much like Washburn County is discussing. You don't want them here. They destroy communities. I'll just leave it at that. You know, you'll hear the Lake Association make outlandish claims that sound great for lake associations. There's over 200 of them in Wisconsin. They won't tell you anything about them. They won't tell you anything about which lake districts borrowed money in the names and property of the people that live within them. They don't tell you anything about them, but they'll bring it up. They'll say, well, you know, more votes, more democracy. They'll say there are over 200 districts. You've got a huge problem here. Let me circle back. How did we get here real quick? The Lake Association of Callahan Mud, we are not a part of it, never have been. We warned about it for years, over a decade now, and here we are. Third time in 2 weeks we've been in this room. They are claiming that the Sawyer County Board of Supervisors, you guys and the others that are not on this committee, have basically stated, we can't find it anywhere, but you are no longer going to, or you're not going to help them. They claim that they need a dam. There's some data that says otherwise. And the taxpayer, we're not going to be, you guys aren't going to help them with the taxpayer dollars. So they drew a fictitious fairy tale border around part of Sawyer County here. Sorry, the battery flew down there. So what you're telling us is the people in here have to pay for a dam if we in fact need one, or maybe a little work on the impoundment to make it shore it up a little. You're saying that we have to pay for all that. Could be as high as $1.5 million with interest. You're looking at about $2.2 million, almost $15,000 a month when you include milfoil, the fees, the people, the stuff, the things, they'll just keep adding up. There is no math, and I know math very well, that you will be able to set a mill rate high enough on the people that is in this fictitious boundary that you'll ever be able to pay for it. You are going to enslave this community with this burden for life. We will never be able to get a 60% vote to get rid of these people like is required, because there'll be insurance on this dam that will last a lifetime, generations. You'll never get rid of this lake district. You can't have them here. Now, when they drew this red boundary, what's so fun about this is they just went along. I was going to bring a picture here of a big row of mailboxes. I think there's probably 13 of them on there. They interviewed a lot of people on the outskirts of this boundary they drew. When they found out people had no interest in being in their district and paying a second property tax or privatizing taxes to pay for dams and impoundments, roads, bridges, who knows what you have planned, they said no. They drew the boundary around them. I literally share mailboxes with the people, my neighbors, you know, right here connected to our properties, that I'm in, you're not. You're in, you're not. It's so ridiculous. Now, I want to also point out one last thing, and I'll get out of here. I'll just wrap it up here today. If we were to even entertain, and I hate to entertain the idea that we're going to do a district and all that stuff, who's included? The boundaries usually include the property of all riparian owners and can include off-lake property that benefits from the lake or affects the lake's watershed. They even drew the boundary away from the businesses that benefit the most. I've lived here a quarter century, and The businesses aren't even included. They benefit the most by all of this. So did you really, we do need to find out if the Sawyer County Board has told the citizens of Hayward and Sawyer County that they're no longer going to use our tax dollars to fix things. I'm going to have to pay for my own. And for example, the dam we're going to fund on Fish Trap Lake and Winter, I believe. I may have that mostly correct, but I'm going to help pay for that, but they're not going to help pay for ours. So well, I appreciate your time. That's it for now. I'm sure we'll see
Thank you.
each other a lot in the future. Thanks.
Now I've got Greg Isol.
Morning, my name is Greg Isel, 11007 West Chief River Road. Just want to say that I'm on a social security disability like several others I know on the lake. We can't afford all these new taxes all the time. I know you guys wouldn't like to see a 10 to somewhere between 10 and 30% increase on your taxes. So why would you put that upon us? I was forced to retire earlier than anticipated due to health reasons. Medical bills get awfully expensive and I seem to get more and more of them all the time. I always dreamed of living up here, and to this day I wake up in the morning and still can't believe I actually live here. And we've been here for 6 years living full time. I don't want to have to be forced to sell my property because I can't afford these taxes anymore. I also feel that I shouldn't have to pay for all the poisonous chemicals that are doing the harm to the ecosystem of the lake. The association can't even tell anybody how much this project's gonna cost. Before any dam should be built, the roadway should be taken care of and the township owns the road. So why would we even put a dam in if the biggest problem is the roadway? I don't think we should be doing this. The board has the authority to remove anybody they want, any of the properties they want. I feel they should remove everybody that hasn't signed a petition, and if these people still want a Lake District, let them have it, but only the people that signed for it. Wish you all very happy holidays, and thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Next would be Linda Zillmer.
Good morning, Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property taxpayer, property owner, and resident of the village of Birchwood, and both properties are on the Birch Lake Dam. Dams are an important issue for Sawyer County, whether they be the ones that the county maintains or ones that are subject to further investigation like this one. I believe also that forming a lake district, while this might be the first application that comes before the county, it won't be the last. There's discussion about other ones. So I think using this opportunity to really understand getting the process right will help this application as well as the ones that you will get in the future. I'm very concerned that even with the explanation that there was, I believe, a 3-month waiting or 3-month period to allow a report to be prepared. I can't understand why there is a need for a special meeting the day before Thanksgiving when this could easily have been addressed at your regular meeting and maybe more people would have been allowed to participate. I also believe that with the issues that have been raised about maybe how this dam came to be, with the town road issue, with the county's involvement in maintaining other dams, that all this discussion could be held in open session. It would help everyone better understand the process and have more trust in what the county is doing. So I guess I would also ask that when you get to item number 9, closed session, a lot of people have been questioning why is there any need? You don't have to go into closed session. You can probably discuss those items in open session, so please consider doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Online? Anybody online? Nobody?
Hello, this is Lynn Amundson. I raised my hand.
Okay, go ahead, Lynn.
I think you've heard a lot of discussion from a lot of different members as far as the collection of the petitions. I think that we could explain that very succinctly as how that was done. On July 6th, we had our first association meeting where some petitions were distributed and signed by those in the presence. After that meeting, everything was mailed out to those who had not attended the meeting. For the record, I, as president, my husband, Roger, as treasurer, hold the only key to the P.O. box for Callahan Mud Lake Association. I was in charge of collecting those all from the mail. There were a couple that did come back scanned to the secretary, and she immediately turned those over to me. As far as the issue about how many different one signs, if they were on the tax roll based on Wisconsin statute of last December 2023, they are allowed to sign. Yes, there are multiple families who have multiple members who own individual properties. If their name was on the tax roll, they were allowed to sign. Example, the Spaldings, the Egelhoffs. The other thing that has come into question, if you have a trust fund under one name, yes, you get one signature. But when you have a trust fund under two names of two different spouses, they each get a signature. So those that have come into question all follow under Wisconsin statute 33.25 and also under signatures at 33.01. I think it would be very difficult for anyone to just look at the tax roll and see which properties are landlocked. I don't even understand why that is in question. The boundary determinations took many, many hours. We were in discussion for weeks with our consult from UW Extension, who prepared Chapter 4 and Chapter 5, which all cross-references Wisconsin Statute 33, which we are obligated to follow. Those who do not live directly on the lake, but maybe live across the lake, can easily access. There's a public landing. There's boat launches at Callahan Resort. If they choose not to use the lake, that's their personal decision, but they've bought property near a lake that has value to potential buyers in the future. As far as the issue of the notarized signature, it is very clearly stated in the statutes that there's only needed to be one notarized signature. We could have gone out and gone house to house, which we did not, in respect for all those who own personal properties. They could have all signed one petition. We decided to give them the respect to discuss it with their family and sign the others alone. And per the statute, only one notarized signature need to be made under oath, which I did, which definitely says that to the best of my knowledge, I know these signatures are correct. There was a group that collected them on July 6th at that meeting. Number two, I was the only one, except for the 2 or 3 that were scanned to the secretary that immediately came back to me. I was the only one who collected and looked at those signatures. As far as the cost of the
I have to
dam,
move you along.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more with hands up?
Yeah, I had my hand up.
Okay,
Thank you. My name is Holly Robbins, and I'm also a landowner on Lake Callahan. And when I bought, I was told that the dam was owned by the DNR, erroneously, apparently. But I bought my property with the understanding that I was buying the lake as it was, and that I had no idea that I was going to have to pay for any of these kind of concerns that we have. But there it is. That's just the way things work out. In my hometown, if I need to replace the sidewalk out front, the city determines if I have to replace the sidewalk out front, I get a special assessment. If I have to replace the parts of the water line to the street, I get a special assessment. That's just normal part of how things work. And so this would be similar. We have a special situation where we need special infrastructure in order to maintain what we have. I understand that that means that we may end up having to have a special assessment. That's part of being a landowner, and that's just something I would expect. I also, am not thrilled about spending more taxes. I don't think anyone is. But on the other hand, infrastructure adds value. And so that's something we always have to balance. We built a country based on people contributing and building infrastructure. It isn't someone else that builds that infrastructure. We all build the infrastructure. And this infrastructure really only benefits a small part of the county. I understand why the county can't take on every single special project, and that, that sometimes this is the way it works out. We also do not know for sure that we will have to do the dam, but creating a lake district is the first step in order to try and figure that out. And we need more resources to figure all that out and to deal with the things we have to deal with. And so it's only, there's been a lot of talk about what's fair. This is the fairest way we can think of to spread out the needs of this area. Some people haven't been supporting and haven't been doing any work or haven't been contributing. And so this is a fair way to do that. I think it's perfectly fair. And I think another thing to consider is that some of the properties that think that they shouldn't be part of the district, again, we followed the guidance from the state. And some of those properties have suggested that they have their own boat ramp, and that's a perfect example of how they're giving access to the lake through their properties to properties that are off the lake, which is why the boundary needs to be the way that we designed it, within a reasonable area that would be considered very reasonably the community that is impacted, because one lot off of the lake can easily get access to the lake through someone on the lake giving them access. So it seems like a reasonable boundary to me. And I definitely support the Lake District going forward. I think it's what we need to plan for the future. We're really thinking ahead and being prepared. And I think that this is what does that. Thank you.
Thank you. Martin Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Martin Hanson, 11078N Robin Lane. I am not owning land in the district or adjacent to the district, but I'd like to speak in favor of the Lake District concept. I'd like to urge the committee and eventually the Sawyer County Board of Supervisors to do due diligence in researching this topic. It is quite complex, as you're starting to hear. I think some of the public testimony and media coverage and other circulating information has been very accurate and helpful, but there are other misinformation points that are also being made that you need to be sure you vet this through the state statutes and your council rather than all from public testimony. I don't mean to discount public testimony in any way. I think it's important to our process. And speaking about process, the budget for the Lake District is determined at an annual meeting by the members of the Lake District. So everyone within the district has a say at that annual meeting in terms of what that budget is going to be, ergo what the mill rate will be. I think it is an equitable way to assign infrastructure costs to the benefiting properties. I do not think it's a private taxation, much as the other add-ons to property tax in the state have been. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. No more hands up. There are very many emails. Should we read the emails? Yeah, they did, yeah. I don't remember which ones. We have one here. I've got one here from Jim Kozinski, and it does say, you can read this into the meeting. Hi, Lynn. James Kozinski, 11204 Catbird Lane, Hayward, Wisconsin. Writing to oppose the proposed Mud Lake Callahan Lake District dam replacement. Please have my comments read in the minutes of the upcoming special meeting opposing the formation of a lake district. We already pay substantial property taxes and the county currently maintains other dams. They should assume responsibility for this dam as well. If property values decrease, that means decreased tax revenue for the county. They should have a vested interest. Thank you for your time. James Kozinski. Yeah, would you? I don't know if they're meant to be read.
Yep. My name is Randall Armsbury. I live at 11051 West South Shore Road, Hayward, Wisconsin. I'm writing this email communication to you and the Callahan and Mud Lake Protective Association to request that you remove my home and property from the corrupt proposed Callahan and Mud Lake District. My home and property were drawn in on the proposed Callahan and Mud Lake District map without my permission or approval. I did not sign the petition. I do not want anything to do with this crooked, corrupt Lake District idea. I do not live on nor even own property on Callahan or Mud Lake. I do not spend time on nor do I care anything about Callahan or Mud Lake. The fact that my home and property were drawn in and included in this proposed district, even though I do not live or own property on either Callahan or Mud Lake, can only be part of some crooked, corrupt scheme to rope more people into the proposed Lake District so that the Lake District Board can raise more money for its cause. Whether it's increased taxes, fees, dues, or whatever for being part of the Lake District, I do not want any part of it. Again, I am requesting that you remove my property from and do not include my property in the proposed Callahan and Mud Lake District. I have previously made this request via email to the Callahan and Mud Lake Protective Association board members on 10/28/24 and then to Sawyer County on 10/30/24. Since then, I have received no correspondence of any kind from either party in regards to my request. Since I'll not be able to attend this meeting in person, I'd like to have my opinion and request read in for the public record if possible. Thank you for your time and consideration. Randall Armsbury, 11/26/24. Another one. Good afternoon. On Sunday, November 3rd of 2024, I emailed committee members to request that our property at 11051 West South Shore Road be removed from the proposed Lake District map. I would like to reiterate that request and have it read in for public record if possible. Please keep in mind that the people who are petitioning for the Lake District, along with those that have signed the petition, are doing so willingly. My husband and I do not wish to be a part of the district and are essentially being forced into it. If you do decide to allow the formation of the Lake District, please remove our property from those included in the district. Perhaps the district could even be formed by only those properties that signed the petition. Once again, my reasons for our property to be removed from the map are as follows. Our property does not have access to the lake, nor does it have a view of the lake. If we want to use Callahan or Mud Lakes, we have to drive about 7 minutes away to get to a public boat landing. We can more easily access the Chippewa flowage in two different locations. Any time we spend on the water is between the Chippewa flowage and Moose Lake. I do not feel that being near these lakes would add value to our property. While being near a lake may cause our property's assessed value to increase, I would argue that it has nothing to do with how much we would be able to sell our house and property for in the future. It has been my experience that location and supply demand drive the real value more than the assessed value. People looking to buy a house on a lake are not going to be interested in buying our house that is not on, have access to, or even have a view of the lake. While our property can reasonably be considered part of the lake community, it could just as easily be considered part of the Reed Lake community right across Highway B. Because of this, I believe we should have a choice, and we do not choose to be a part of the lake community or a proposed lake district. The chances of our property ever being developed in the future in a way that could affect the lake or lake community are slim to none. Thank you for consideration of this matter. Tanya Armsbury, 11051 West South Shore Road. And then this is a different one, yes. Members of the Land, Water, and Forest Resources Committee, my wife and I own property on Callahan Mud Lake, and I'm writing today in strong support of the petition our community has filed to form the Callahan and Mud Lake District. We purchased our home on Callahan Lake in 2005, and we were immediately drawn to its natural beauty, its opportunities for recreation, fun, and peace. Our children grew up here in the summers and over many Christmas holidays. They named the island's bald eagle Martin, cleared the ice for broomball, and found their own special fishing spots. My wife and I are recently retired and are in the process of relocating permanently to our home on the lake. We have valued friends around the lake and have shared bonfires, barbecues, and sunset cruises with them. Because of the lake, we have chosen this as where we would like to spend the remainder of our lives. The current dam spillway has been declared by the DNR to be in poor condition, and I personally heard our DNR representative state that if ownership of the dam is not established and work is not done to correct its instability, the possibility of it being declared abandoned is real, which will result in the loss of our lake. A devastating consequence of losing the lake and its watershed will be personal, as we and the 100 other homeowners will lose a substantial portion of the value of our homes. And yet this loss will extend beyond the homeowners, as the county will be affected by the loss of the tax base. Additionally, the abundant flora and fauna that exist in our ecosystem will suffer. Our lake also has frequent visitors, both for day use or of the public boat launch, and people who regularly vacation at the two resorts on the lake. In short, the ripple effect of losing the lake will go far beyond the people who own homes in the lake. The outcome of literally thousands of volunteer hours by the committee and input from state agencies and private firms has determined that to save our lake, the formation of this lake district is the only feasible way to address the serious condition of the dam. In fact, no other viable option has surfaced, given that the county has expressed their disinterest in owning and caring for another dam. Lake residents have shown strong support for the formation of the district, and if it is approved by the county, all residents will have a voice in the business of the district, allowing for transparency, debate, and consensus building within our community. Said another way, as residents, we are expressing the willingness to spend the time and financial resources that are needed to take responsibility for the protection and care of the lake for ourselves and future generations. Callahan and Mud Lakes are an important part of the Hayward Lakes area, as well as being consistent with the town's land use plan. Providing a sustainable path forward for the future of the lake will enable it to continue contributing to the vibrant culture that is the Northwoods of Wisconsin. I urge you to recommend approval of the Lake District to the Sawyer County Board. Thank you for your service to our community and for consideration of this matter. Stephen and Mary McIntosh, 11016 West South Shore Road, Hayward, Wisconsin.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Number 7, consider approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Somebody would like to make a motion to?
Yes, I would make that motion that we approve. I'll second it.
Okay, motion was made by Mr. Carrianen and seconded by Mr. Newman to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Number 8. This is where I'm gonna ask Andy to jump in.
Okay. So the purpose of today's meeting is for the committee to review, take possible action on the Callahan and Mud Lake District petition. I raised this to other people as I think this is going to be a more of a working meeting for the committee as opposed to some of the other meetings you have. Ultimately, the committee is responsible to submit their report of the public hearing to the county board, and then also a findings of fact and a potential recommendation on the formation of the district. And then the county board takes it from there and acts on the petition and determines whether or not to approve it. So I know you wanted to have a special meeting to focus on this. In the agenda, the clerk has uploaded a draft of all the petition items, the report of the public hearing. For your reference, staff along with council has spent some time since it's been submitted and since the public hearing trying to pull together all the information that pertains to the petition and prepare to answer questions. We've had a discussion with council. We've had a discussion with the UW Extension educator that works with Lake districts just to get a better understanding of the process of formation. If you've read the statutes and read the UW Extension document, there's not a lot of detail in the statutes. There's more suggestions in the UW Extension document. But council is online and we'll walk you through the report and the findings of facts. Ultimately, you need to, these are working documents, giving you a start on this. Ultimately, you're going to have to approve whatever goes to the board, though. Rebecca, do you want to jump in on anything? Just kind of setting the stage for what we're going to do.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Andy, I think you gave a good summary of what we're going to be talking through today, and a good summary of how the statute set forth the process of creation or establishment of a lake district and the county's particular role in that creation of the lake district. Many of the public comments touched on some of those statutory requirements, and we will go through those in more detail. And that greater detail of discussion is for a few reasons. Number one, because as Andy indicated, you are going to be reviewing particular findings of fact and conclusions of law, and then a decision that, if you so are inclined, you will forward to the county board. Keep in mind that your positive or recommendation to create the Lake District is not required. So in the event that this committee says, no, we don't think it should be created, the matter still goes to the county board under the statutes, and that's pursuant to 3326 sub 3. So just keep that in mind. Now, that being said, the work that this committee is doing is essential because this committee is the body responsible for adopting the report that is referenced also in 33.26 of the statutes. And so the staff, county staff, has done a tremendous amount of work in going through the statutory requirements and preparing the draft report for your review and consideration. So one of the items on your agenda is to review that report and then determine whether you want to adopt that as your report and then forward it to the county board. So that is kind of a general overview of what I think the committee will accomplish today. I'm happy to answer any questions along the way. And Andy, I kind of defer to you to how you want to go about next steps, and or how you, if there's a particular way, Mr. Chairman, you'd like to proceed through items 8A and B and C. Those all kind of go together, but I think it's a good idea that they were separated on the agenda because they are distinct issues or distinct items that we're going to tackle today.
I guess as a suggestion in the agenda under item 8A is the review of the petition requirements, and there's a document that's been uploaded that's a draft of the committee report to the county board, and then it also includes the petition elements with it. do we just want to walk through that? And then I think you may have questions already in mind. I think as we go through it, you can ask those questions.
I believe we should go through that
All right.
so that everybody's up to speed.
All
If
right.
I
I
can just
will.
make-
Do
I'm
you want to
sorry.
go ahead with that, Rebecca, or do you want me to?
Yeah. I just wanted to make one comment that the purpose of this report is to provide literally a report on a summary of what occurred at the public hearing, when the public hearing occurred, and the information that is contained within the petition, additional information that was provided in conjunction with the public hearing, an overview of comments in favor of the formation of the district, an overview of comments that were not in favor of the district. So really a robust report that is going to be forwarded to the county board, if you are so inclined, that really becomes the document of record of the public hearing. So much more in-depth than your typical minutes. But again, based on the statutory requirements, we need this robust report to become the foundation of the county board's decision. So that's why this report looks different than you may usually see in a staff report, because it is a different statutory creature. Using zoning as an example, a staff report to the zoning committee is not required by statute. This report is required by statute. Thank you. So I'm happy to, if you want me to walk through the reports, I can do that. Or Andy, if you'd like to walk through it, or anyone else, I'm happy to.
Why don't, if you're comfortable, just go ahead and walk through it.
Sure.
And then go back and forth.
Yep, you bet. Yeah, because then I don't have to interrupt people on the legal points. Okay, so you have the committee report up on your screen. The introduction is just that. The petition was received on October 11th, 2024. That is an important date because it triggers the 30-day timeline under 33.26 sub 1, in which a public hearing must be held. And so that is the kind of the reason for the rush, if you will, from the date of the submission of the petition to the holding of the public hearing. A key item with this report is that the petition is attached to it and incorporated into it as an exhibit. So this report includes all of the petition information and all of the additional submissions that we will go through. So really look at this report as a holistic document. Moving next to item B, the public hearing. Again, it gives a summary of when it occurred, where it occurred, the who, what, where, when, why. The report includes the public notice that was issued by the clerk's office, and that is consistent with the requirements of 33.26 sub 2. The people at the public hearing who testified, again, just a summary overview or an overview for not only this committee, but also the board. The number of people speaking in favor of the petition were 10. The number of people speaking not in favor was 8. And no one spoke with a comment of I'm not in favor or not in opposition, but they may have had other general comments. We have a list of the people that attended the public hearing. we have the additional documentation that was submitted at the public hearing. So again, if you were to scroll forward, Exhibit E includes other opposing documentation that was submitted in opposition to the creation of the Lake District. And that information is important because certainly we look at the petition when making the decision, but you are also able to weigh the evidence submitted by the other side. So all of that information can certainly come within the scope of your review. So that information is also attached to this report. And then there were additional comments submitted outside of the public hearing. The report obviously doesn't include the comments that were rendered at today's meeting because this obviously was prepared in anticipation of today's meeting. But again, all of that documentation is included in Exhibit F. Very importantly, the report includes a link to the public hearing. So if anyone were so inclined to go back and review a part or any portion or the whole thing of the public meeting, they could do so. Now, moving on to the next page. Page 2, thank you. Some additional facts and information. Again, we're giving a summary of the events at the public hearing and within the petition. The petition, when submitted, contained 135 petitions, or I'm sorry, signed petitions of the landowners in favor of the creation of the district. The total number of properties is 212. So those are the two numbers that we use in determining whether 51% of the landowners, as defined by the statutes, is met. And again, that is a requirement of Section 33.25 of the statutes. The petition must include signatures of 51% of the landowners in order for the petition to move forward. So based on review of the petition and the documents submitted with the petition, it has been determined that there were 135 signatures, which constitutes 62% of the landowners. Now, there may be some additional questions regarding those signatures, which we can talk about. But for purposes of this meeting and the report, it's important to note that that 51% threshold was met in order to commence the public hearing process. Okay, then moving forward, the statute requires the petition to include very specific information that is set forth in 33.25 sub 2 of the statute. So in the report, we've got a summary of that information and where it occurs, or I'm sorry, where it is referenced within the petition. So the petition named the district as Callahan/Mud Lake District. A statement of necessity, which again is required by 33.25 sub 2. Is included at page 154 of the petition. The public benefit statement, which is required by 33.25 sub 2, sub C, is included page 155 of the petition. And the petition contained a verification as required by 33.25 sub 3. This point I want to expand on a little bit because there have been some questions regarding the verification process and what does that mean. Under the statutes, the petition requires a verification of one of the petitioners that the signatures are valid. We only get to a question of the legal sufficiency of the validity of the signatures unless there is proof otherwise. That's actually the language in the statute in 33.25 sub 4. So what does that mean? It means that the verification that was submitted by Lynn Amundson, who as one of the petitioners, is valid until proven otherwise. There have been questions in terms of whether each signature page had to include an authentication or a verification. That is not required under the statutes. There's not a lot of case law interpreting this statute, which, as a lawyer makes it challenging. But one of the cases we do have talks about a petition that included a verification page on top and then the signature pages underneath. And the signature pages do not all have to come to one mailbox. They can be delivered to multiple people who are engaged in the signature gathering process. And the verification page is the one person who is saying all of these signatures are valid. And this person, Ms. Amundson, is saying that regardless of who got these signature pages, I am verifying that they are valid. So with that verification, Ms. Amundson is putting herself, if you will, on the line from a legal standpoint in verifying the legitimacy of those signatures. So from the county's perspective, you can certainly, and you should certainly, look at those signature pages and make sure that there's an agreement that they are properly executed, and that Ms. Amundson followed the correct process. But again, that legal verification is a document executed by one of the petitioners here, Ms. Amundson. And then as of the date of the report, no signatories who signed the petition have been withdrawn. Now, we've heard lots of property owners say that they're within the district, but they don't want to be included in the district. That is a different legal point than this point. So the statutes specifically allow for someone who signed the petition to withdraw that signature, so it's not included in the 51% calculation, but that withdrawal must occur before the public hearing. That we didn't have any of those, so we don't have to worry about recalculating the number of signatures or that 51% based on somebody who withdrew their signature in the petition. Again, completely separate issue from people who do not want to be included in the district and who didn't sign the petition. So any questions, again, on that report and all of the information contained in the report? Or, obviously the public hearing was conducted in front of this committee. If you feel that there are items that should be added to this report, you can certainly do so. If you want to make revisions to the report, you can certainly do so. This report is a committee report. This is your report. And so, from a legal standpoint, I want to make sure that there's no questions and that the committee is comfortable with the information contained in the report. So when it's sent to the county board, you can, again, if you're so inclined, we can say with certainty that yes, indeed, this is the committee's report as required by the statutes. Any questions?
Rebecca, I have a question.
Yes.
It's been challenged that there was no legal description of the boundaries, but according to the statute, it says that it should be accompanied by a plat or a sketch. Do you think our report should include acceptance of the map that they provided?
Great question. And I actually may have skipped over that requirement. If someone would mind scrolling up to keep going to the first page. Under public hearing, we should have included a reference, and it may be in Exhibit E, that includes that plat that was included with the petition, or it may be included in Exhibit A, which is the actual petition. But to answer what your question gets to, is with the petition, a meets and bounds legal description was not required. What was required is a depiction of the boundaries of the territory to be included in the district. And based on my review of the petition and what was included in the petition, that legal requirement was met. Once we get to the public hearing, that is when a meets and bounds description is required under 33.26 sub 2 of the statutes. And so once the county clerk put forth that public notice that included the meets and bounds legal description of the district, then that legal requirement was met. So yes, if it's if the committee feels that it's not clear and we should add, another sentence here that, that the plat with the petition met the statutory requirements and that the meets and bounds were included, I would wholly support that. I think that's a very good point.
Do we need a motion for that inclusion, or?
What I would say is, if somebody, I could do it, make a list of the, revisions that we can, that staff can make sure get into the report before it goes to the board. And then you can, there can be one motion with any, or with all of the revisions, within your decision on the report as a whole. That may be the most efficient way to do it. If you'd like to make, I think that's the best way to do it, just given the way the agenda reads.
So John, should we take a vote on individual things or wait till the end, or?
I think a roll call vote would be right.
Are there other revisions you'd like to make to the report? Or other comments on the report?
Any more comments from board?
I had a question about one of the folks who signed the petition but spoke in opposition to it on November 6th. Brenda Lanen, signature ID number 91.
Mm-hmm.
Was she too late to be removed?
We did not receive a request to have their signature removed from the petition.
Oh, thank you.
And that's correct. Under 33.25 sub 5 of the statutes, that her signature is not deemed withdrawn from the petition in the calculation of the 51% unless it is withdrawn prior to the public hearing. Now, her speaking out against the establishment of the district at the public hearing can certainly be taken into consideration by the committee. And, her comments are included in the record of the public hearing and so forth. The only legal difference is that her signature is still included in that 51% calculation.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to address any changes to the boundaries as a committee?
You can certainly do that. So how how that works under the statute in 33.26 sub 6, it allows the county board to change the boundaries than what was originally proposed in the petition. Because this is a report to the board, you can certainly include in the report and in your forwarding this to the board recommended changes to the boundaries. So what you set forth is not a final decision, but what you're doing is you're narrowing the issue down for the county board and say, hey, you know, these are the ones that we think are appropriate to be removed from the district. So yes, that would absolutely be appropriate for the committee to do if you wanted to have that discussion and make some decisions on how you would propose changing the boundaries. And I'm making a list here of the different motions and items to be decided to make sure that we cover all of those. And so if you want to have that discussion and make those changes, we would do that. I would recommend you do that by another motion as well.
Now, would we change the boundaries by basically removing the people that spoke against or have a letter up against the formation of a Lake District?
So I know it was mentioned in public comment that, you know, a suggestion in terms of removing everyone who was against it or who didn't sign the petition. The concern with taking that route is we may be losing the contiguity of the district. And in answering this question, it helps to go back to what the statutory intent of this statute is, which is to create this governmental entity, this Lake District, for the protection of this resource that is the lake. And so that is why the question of who benefits from the lake and from the work of the Lake District becomes important. So the decision for the committee is whether a property who is asking to be removed does or does not benefit from the lake and the Lake District. So if the committee feels that there's enough factual evidence to remove all of those people who didn't sign the petition, I think it needs to be, the committee should be very specific in terms of establishing why that individual does not benefit from the lake or the Lake District.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Could we ask Lynn how they determined who would be in on this Lake District boundary?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm assuming you meant me, Lynn Amundson, to answer
Yep.
that?
Yes, I was, Lynn. Thank you.
Okay, Lynn Amundson, 10745W Callahan Lake Road. Multiple weeks of discussion amongst our group and with UW Extension as it talked very clearly about who we include and who we do not include. What we considered under this are, of course, number of properties directly adjacent to the lake. For example, the riparian parcels. Properties which could arguably derive value by being near the lake versus some other assets such as on Highway B. Properties that could be considered part of the lake community. Properties that could be developed in the future and could impact the lake quality and the lake community. And we included that because as we know, as of today, some of those properties are continuing to be sold. From there, we just spent so much time going back and forth with our discussion. Some people have asked, well, why not the businesses on Highway B? Well, we know they're near to us, but we also know that those businesses are frequented by hundreds and hundreds of people, if not more, some who aren't even living on our lake or within our boundary district. Basically, throughout our discussion with our contact at UW Extension and others, the 4 points I mentioned before is where we ended up. We know that we started with a larger boundary, we shortened that boundary, and from there we developed our decision of where that boundary would be. And that was, of course, over, like I said, multiple weeks of the discussion. We did not in any way know, because we have no way of knowing based on the tax roll of who has deeded access or who would be considered landlocked, as came up as a question earlier in the conversation. Does that help clarify some?
I just offer too that if you get to the point of wanting to look at the boundary, the district, the boundary map, we do have a new map created in GIS so that we can zoom in and out on parcels, and it's
Page 175 is the map that they.
correct. Yeah, and I was gonna mention that too, and you asked about in the public hearing in exhibit, I think it's exhibit D within the report here. The public hearing, when we published that, we did include the meets and bounds description as well as the sketch or the parcel map. So both are included in the report then.
May make one more final comment too, as it was discussed earlier about those that would be what we call downstream. So some of those on Falcon Ridge and Otto. We believe that they really do have a stake if the dam and the road make their land inaccessible. So even though they may not live directly on the lake, anything that flows down from the dam certainly would impact them. And Eric Olson, who was our contact and great educator from UW Extension, he specifically looked with us at the properties in consideration for our Lake District and really gave us direction to our specific questions about where to draw the lines. So really looking at it, it could be theoretical, but those were our final decisions on the boundary limits. Thank you.
Andy, do you want to pull up the map?
It's exhibit B, sorry, exhibit B. We'll pull that one up, and then if you want me to pull up the GIS map, we can pull that up.
Okay. I think this one is, at least from my perspective, this one is probably the most helpful because it's easy to see. I just wanted to make a couple legal points with respect to consideration of the parcels in and the parcels out. You heard from Ms. Amundson, who's the petitioner, that it was a deliberate decision as to who to include and who not to include. And that they worked with Eric Olson of UW Extension, whom I hold in high regard as well. And I think he brings great value to this process as a whole. And with that being said, I think you can give some deference to the boundaries as they've been presented. From a decision standpoint, for the committee and then for the board, it is a legislative decision as to which parcels to be included, what those boundaries are going to look like, which again, from a legal standpoint, is given great deference. So if a court were to be reviewing your decision, it would be given great deference because ultimately it's a policy decision. So that's one point. The second point is that the statutory requirement is that a property to be included in the district will be benefited by the establishment of that proposed district. So when you're looking at the boundaries, again, the question is whether the properties included within those boundaries, within that red area, are benefited by the district. And so, the preference of the owner of in or out, again, we legally should have a substantial or a substantiated basis upon which that property owner is not benefited. So keep that in mind. One other point is that there's interesting, I guess it would be deemed dicta in one of the cases we have that talks about a reviewing bodies. They're not required to go parcel by parcel, and that would be, I can't remember the exact language that they use, but that would be an in-depth exercise that the deciding body is not required to do. So I don't want you to get the impression that you have to go through each of these parcels and say whether there's a benefit or whether there's not. You can look at the district, the proposed boundaries as a whole. So I just wanted to point that out as well. So, that's a time saver, if you will. You're not legally required to go through parcel by parcel and have a robust discussion of whether there is a benefit to each of those parcels.
Andy, has the Wisconsin DNR or the Wisconsin Conservation Committee made any recommendations? They got a lot of property on this.
Not that I'm aware of, and for the purposes of the signatures, they're not counted. State and federal lands are not included as eligible signers. They're not taxed, no. But it's just state and federal are not included as part of the signatures. Like they don't count for or against, like denominator. But town, local government, county, towns do. So, but none of those bodies have taken any. They have not signed on or.
And the town around Lake hasn't, nothing on this at all, right?
If I could bring up one thing, I don't know if this is the right time, but just to recap, the sketch you see up on the screen was submitted with the petition. It was included in the public hearing. It was also what was included in the mailings that the organizer sent to the property owners when they asked, for them to sign off or sign the petition. That is what it was included, not the meets and bounds, which we've determined is appropriate and met the requirement of a sketch or parcel map of the property. When the petition was submitted to the county, this map was included. They also provided the meets and bounds legal description then for the borders of that, which was included in the public hearing. We reviewed the meets and bounds description kind of simultaneous. We had a pretty tight window once we received the petition to get it advertised to meet public hearing requirements. Subsequent to that, staff, I mean, if you saw the public hearing notice, the legal description was very lengthy. We did find one small error in the legal description, and it's, oh, maybe, I'm just gonna grab,
Yeah, I have it up if you want to give me share permission.
you got that, okay.
Why am I not sharing?
So not like the GIS map?
Maybe not. It shows that I'm
There it
sharing the
is.
screen there.
Yeah, once you zoom in on it there, point it out. So what happened is there's a 50-foot discrepancy on a parcel. Can you put your cursor on it maybe? There it
Yeah,
is.
zoom
There
in.
it's coming.
It's just really slow from
Yeah.
the share.
Right in the middle of the screen, you can see where the red line and the green line don't match up on that parcel.
It kicked me out. No. Fully kicked me out of the meeting. So.
Here, I have it pulled up in mine. I don't know if I'll try. Huh. There we go. So I'm just gonna put it right there. You can see my cursor. This one parcel right there. The red line shows the meets and bounds description that was provided and that we've been using. The green line is actually where the parcel line is. What happened, I believe, is there was a swap of 50 feet between the two parcels, which the surveyor that did the legal description did not pick up on. And the other part of this is that property is owned by Tanya and Randall Armsbury, who we have read the public comment from and want to be removed from. And this parcel is at the outer limits of the district. Like Rebecca said, when you're considering the district, you want to try to maintain contiguity. You don't want to take parcels out of the middle. If staff has any one recommendation on the boundaries though, because of the discrepancy, because they don't want to be in it, we would recommend you remove that parcel when you get to that point. Well, it's actually, the discrepancy is 50 foot, but removing that parcel would be that's south of South Shore Road. And we would look up their parcel number and give you that when you make a motion to. Yes.
And just as the flip side, if you weren't wanting to remove, it would be recommended that you would include the full parcel. By including that additional 50 feet, you do have to hold another public hearing to amend the boundary. You have to hold a public hearing to add parcels.
Right.
But you, as the committee, as a recommendation of the board, can remove or recommend removals without an additional public hearing.
But if need be, this is the GIS map that's been created. It's internal right now. But anticipating you might want to make changes, we went ahead and created this so it's a little easier to zoom in on parcels, look up ownership, et cetera. The green line are the parcels. The green lines show each parcel within the district. The red line is the boundary that's been provided. So we can zoom in on a specific parcel, pull up, which I'll just say that there, it's a little slow, but
So
we can pull up the parcel data for each parcel.
Red is the boundary.
The committee worked on the boundary of this district forever. and I've been looking at it for a month. But I did have a couple of questions about two parcels on the northwest of Callahan, or of Mud, way up there on the top. And they are landlocked with no roads, those two up there.
Where's my,
Let's see, 64 and 40 something. Yeah, that one, 48, is that what it says? This one and that one.
Okay.
which two?
To your left there. That
Those-
corner one. No, even further. Further west. One more west.
One more
That one
There.
and to the southwest.
to the southwest.
And there's no road, there's no development. I just had a question about those two.
I don't know why they included them, or I can tell you who the owner is.
No,
Nope, one is FVE Inc. and the other one is Great Lakes Logging LLC.
and FVE did write and ask to be removed.
Yes. I think in the first hearing you received those comments, correct?
Well, I'd like to ask a question here. Is it our duty as a committee to take this map and take out who we think should not be on there? Or should they go back to, and Lynn Amundson rethink the whole process over again? Talk to these people that are that are not in favor of it, and let them do their work and bring it back to us again.
I think Rebecca mentioned that it is our responsibility or we can remove parcels from.
We can, but Rebecca, would it be our responsibility to
At
go
this
to
point in
each of these
time-
people?
I'm sorry, what was the last sentence you said? I cut you off. I'm sorry.
Is it our responsibility to go to these individuals that are like the landlocked ones and ask them now, do they want to be included or they want to be not included? Or is that for the committee itself to do, the ones that want to form the Lake District?
Great question. There is no legal obligation for the committee or the board to gather additional evidence from property owners who either didn't sign the petition or who have requested to withdraw. So no, you do not have any sort of investigatory obligation. You can, as Supervisor Wilson indicated, you can have, do that removal based on, or the withdrawal based on the information that you have now. If you feel that you need more factual information to determine whether a particular property or properties will be benefited by the establishment of the proposed district, that point becomes a consideration of whether you want to recommend approval of the district as a whole. There's no statutory process or step that sends questions back to the petitioner to do more work. Now that the petition has been submitted, it is what it is. There's no amendment process to the petition within the statutes. Now, if you feel that petitioners should do more work, there should be more communications with owners and more diligence to on the creation of these boundary lines, then the option for the committee would be to recommend denial of the creation based on the petition and then forward that recommendation to the board. So again, we've got a few layers here. And again, to summarize, number one, the committee does not have any sort of investigatory obligation. Perhaps if you could ask the question, of the petitioner or of staff, or we can look back in the report, to try to answer questions as to how each property will or will not be benefited, and then make some recommendations to the board. But you really don't have an option to send this back to the petitioner to do more work. The petition is what it is in front of you.
Okay, so then would it then be up to us and up to Sawyer County to then, to get people's, I've got a bunch of papers here of people, well, there was about 50-50 of people that wanted to be removed from the Lake District proposal. And there was the ones that are in favor of it. Does Sawyer County then send a letter to each of these outlying ones that are not lake property, like lakefront owners, and see if they want to rescind their joining?
I would not recommend that. No,
Okay.
not only because there's no statutory process that would allow for that type of communication. And really what the committee in its adopting the report and then making its recommendation to the committee or to the board is to make a determination based on the petition as presented. So if you feel there's not enough information for you to determine whether a property is going to receive benefits from the creation of the district, then your decision on that point would be a no. That is the legal question that's in front of you.
Okay.
All parcel owners within the district were mailed a notice of the petition and public hearing.
Okay. So then our duty is just strictly to, yes, proceed with this, or no, deny it, or not proceed with it.
Yes and no. Yes, in that you're looking at the petition as presented, but keep in mind the one thing that you can do in terms of amending the petition is to recommend to the board properties to not include. So you do have that authority. So let's just use the parcel that's highlighted on the GIS map right now. Right now, the petition includes that parcel in within the district. You can, as a committee, recommend to the board that that parcel not be included in the district. Because, and again, the question would be, do you think that that parcel benefits from inclusion of the district? If the answer to that question is no, you can remove it. My point before was that the county does not have an obligation to do any sort of investigation or have follow-up communication with that owner to determine whether there is a benefit.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
May I ask, Steve, I think you have that, that's the Great Lakes logging. Is that what you said?
The one that's highlighted
Highlighted.
now is yes.
Did they sign the petition?
No, it doesn't look like it, no.
I don't think they did not sign, and I don't think we had public comment from them either. The other one you had mentioned was, I believe that's this one here.
Mhm. And some of the recommendation we got back from UW Extension that you know, if the committee is so inclined to remove specific portions from the boundary, it would be those that are not, or that aren't riparian owners, and that you're not keyholing like a hole within the district. That is an outlier, and that's one that can be removed if the committee chooses to do so. You know, but you wouldn't want to keyhole and remove one in the middle of the boundary, nor a riparian owner. That's the recommendation that we received from UW Extension.
A suggestion rather than a mandate.
Yep.
Well,
Amy.
what would the committee like to do then?
It would be my recommendation that we remove those two from the boundary. And then I think we need further discussion on the one to the south.
Andy, can this be moved to the county board without a recommendation from us like they did from, well, I mean, just like the short-term rental did to us. I mean, they moved it forward to the county board, but
I'm gonna punt that one to the council.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, go ahead.
just like this is one of the fun things about the question in front of you as to whether to establish a lake district. There's two parts to that. You have to make a decision on whether you want to adopt the report. That is required because the report that is required to go to the county board has to come from the committee that conducted the public hearing. So that's you. So you have to make you have to decide whether you want to adopt the report. You do not have to decide whether you are giving an affirmative recommendation on the establishment of the district. So there's two parts to that. One, you have to make a decision on the report, and two, you do not have to make a decision on a recommendation to the county board. There's some language in your board rules that I will say encourages a committee indeed to make a recommendation. So I would highly recommend that this committee make a recommendation to the board. If the committee recommends to the board not to create the district, this would still go to the board for review. The board is not bound by the committee's decision on that recommendation.
Can we make a recommendation to approve the report with reservation?
Reservation in terms of the creation of the district?
In
or
terms of the
concerns?
boundaries and perhaps some of the signatures?
Yes, and the way that would take shape is, I think we've got a couple options. Number one, put that in the report. So in the report, you would articulate some of the questions about the signatures. So we may, so that would mean potentially modifying the language in the report in front of you now, the draft report, in terms of the validity of the signatures. We could do it that way. If there are concerns about the boundaries, again, as Supervisor Wilson mentioned earlier, to, within the motion to add a statement to the report that addresses the inclusion of the boundary map with the petition, and that the public hearing notice included the meets and bounds description. We could add it in that section that, again, yes, indeed, these documents were provided. However, the committee has concerns. another option is to just add another section to the report, because again, this is your report, that is concerns of the committee, and literally add an additional section to the report that captures those concerns that you may have. So the board, upon receipt and review of the report, has your concerns contained again within that record, that evidentiary record of what your concerns are. So if you did it that way, sorry, there's somebody beeping outside my window. If you did it that way, we would go through a list of amendments to the report, and then you would recommend, or you would approve the report with those revisions, and then that would go to the board, and then you could again make that second decision of whether you want to recommend approval of the petition to establish the Lake District.
Steve, what are your concerns about the signatures?
Specifically, I see multiple signatures on some of the trusts listed here, and my understanding is that only one signature is allowed for a trust.
Unless the names are on the trust.
I don't see that exception.
No, it's just, right. So if it's John and Sue Johnson Trust, that's one trust, one signature.
Yeah, and for instance, signature ID number 54, Frederickson Trust, has David A. Frederickson and Sarah J. Frederickson for the same trust, same property ID, and both are included in the signature list here.
That's one I have flagged as a question I need to talk to council. Some of these have two trusts. It's not, and I don't know if that's one of them. I don't know if it's Sarah and David Frederickson Trust, or if it's David Frederickson Trust and Sarah Frederickson Trust, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and what Mr. Alvarado just said is key, because if parcel, that number 54 and number 215, in order for those to be counted as separate signatures within that 51% calculation, they have to be different trust entities. If they are the same trust entity, then they only get one signature, even if they own multiple properties. So if the Sawyer County Trust ABC owns 10 parcels within the proposed Lake District, that Sawyer County Trust ABC only gets one signature.
So I'm pulling up I have some of these already ready to go. So this particular one lists owners as David A. Frederickson Trust and then Sarah Frederickson Trust. And I think there's another example of that with
Number 35, Dickman Revocable Trust.
let's see here.
.35 and 214 appear to be the same trust.
Andy, do the county have to go back through and check every one of these for the validity, I guess, each property?
Yeah, I've tried to do that. I've got a half dozen, and Liz has looked up some of the ones that have been in question as well. And so even with the ones I have in question, my numbers are a little different than what they turned in or what the 62%. I've got 124 ballot signatures out of 212 possible. So I'm at 58% right now. Back to the Dickman one, that is showing two separate trusts again. So there's the Thomas Dickman Revocable Trust and the Susan M. Dickman Revocable Trust. And the other one is the David Plocker Trust and Michelle Plocker Trust. They're two separate trusts.
So even if the county was to deny those signatures, you'd still have over the 51% required.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's something that needs to be clarified now, or I guess I would default to Rebecca on that. If there's questions with the validity, you still have 51%, but if you wanted to, I guess, not recognize those signatures, you'd probably want to have something that solidifies that.
Yeah, and I would recommend putting that in the report. And so if there are concerns about the validity of a particular petition, you could include that in the report. And then the key is that you even pulling those out. So let's say there's a list of 5 that have concerns about the validity. Even if you pull those out, does it still meet that 51%? And again, according to Andy's math, it does. And you can include that in the report.
Did you have other, I mean, I think it's good to, if you've seen questions, I think it's good to take a closer look at some of these if you have more.
No, those are all
Okay.
I saw.
Because then I would just add a couple of the other public comments that you've heard regarding the number of signatures. I mean, the observation is true, like there are some properties that have 5 signatures because they have 5 separate property owners listed on the tax records. That's the trusts get 1, corporations get 1. If you have 5 different property owners listed, they get 5. And that's not, I'm not going to say fair, but that's the way the statute reads for how you account for them. Value of properties, that's something you, I mean, can consider, but it's, again, statutorily irrelevant.
I wonder if we're at a point where, or are we way too far beyond this point, where Kay was at, or Miss Wilson was at, a while ago about making the motion on the Lake District, but with, yes or no, but with all these different revisions? Or are we too deep now to be able to do such a thing?
If I can jump in, I don't think you are. I think there's been very good discussion, and I think that you are, it's not too much that you can't entertain a motion to make these revisions to the report. Another option, if the committee is so inclined, is to make a motion to include these revisions. And if you would like to see the report again, you could direct staff to memorialize the revisions as directed by the committee, and then take a look at the report at your next meeting. I may be speaking out of turn here, and staff and Mr. Alvarado may be giving me a virtual kick under the table for saying that. But if the committee feels like they want to see the report again, because again, it's the committee's report, you know, that is an option for you.
No, I'm not, I'm going to pat you on the back. I think from my perspective and staff perspective, we want you to be comfortable with the process and the report. I mean, it is, like, I can't emphasize enough, it is your report. Council and staff have tried to pull it together for you because obviously we're not going to send you home with homework and expect you to write the report, but I think we want you to be comfortable with it, the contents of it, the process, and how it's going to move ahead to the county board. So when you get to the county board and give them the findings of fact and the recommendation, we have all that information ready, and it's I think my perspective is that this is, one, we have not been through this process here before. There are strong feelings on both sides, and I would say it's probably likely we're going to see more. I don't think there's going to be tens of these, but we know there are other lake associations talking about this. So I think it's important to get this one as thorough and as right as we can. So we've set the stage, set the process ahead for any future Lake District requests.
So there were a couple of plots that I recommended to be removed, but do you think we should review the people that have asked to be removed? Well, we could look at the map and see. I don't know.
Can I just ask a question, Rebecca? Like the report to the board, that's the report. I mean, should that be where recommended removals of property should happen, or is that separate from the report to the board?
No, what you could do is in the report, just include a list of the parcels that have requested exclusion, and then include a map with the report. So you've got the visual, and then that visual will allow a discussion of whether, as Mr. Kozlowski said, you've got now keyhole creations. And I agree with the comment from Eric Olson at the UW Extension, not to remove any riparian owners, because again, that really deviates from the statutory intent of creating that lake district. And if we have a patchwork of a lake district, again, we're undermining the statutory intent to create a lake district. So again, that's why the district should generally be contiguous, include all of those riparian owners and so forth. So again, the report could list the owners who have requested exclusion, and then include a map so you can see what that looks like. Let's say hypothetically you get that back at your next meeting in the report, and it does look like a puzzle that's missing a bunch of pieces. You can then make a decision on your recommendation based on that information. And I would say again that a district that looks like a puzzle with missing pieces throughout really doesn't meet the statutory intent of a lake district. And if that's how the committee thinks the district should be, that would most likely result in a not recommending creation of the district. Again, that is all hypothetical or what could happen at your next meeting. And if the committee has concerns about addressing the specific property owner's request to withdraw, I think having staff prepare that list and then prepare a map is a very good way to be able to answer your questions and to look at and discuss with that visual in front of you what the map looks like of not including those folks who've requested to be not included.
So I guess I'd like to make a recommendation that we move this to our next committee meeting on December 11th with the changes to the report as to people that would like to have withdrawn their properties per request, What else do we have? Was there any, were the other stipulations to the report? I'm trying to remember.
The other things we mentioned to Rebecca.
The other things that we discussed with Rebecca, I guess, so we can take a
Yes.
look at that on December 11th at our next committee meeting.
Yep, and I have add a statement to the report with respect to the petition, including the plat map, and a statement in the report that the notice specifically included the meets and bounds description. We can, have some more details in that section of the report. Did you want to include a section that details the parcels that we've talked about that I'll have say concerning signatures, or any of the parcels that we've talked about that have signatures that may be questionably valid, and with removal of those from the calculation, you still meet the 51%.
I think that they should be reviewed, and if they need to be removed, at least they're removed to create the validity of the signatures.
Okay.
So a suggestion has been made to basically to relook at this on December 11th meeting with the outlying properties being removed from the proposal.
I can rephrase that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what I heard is, I don't know if you, a suggestion or a motion to bring back the report, to direct staff to bring back the report with the revisions that have been asked for, along with a section that would include a list of proposed properties to remove from the district based on their request with a map. Is that
Yes, that's what
accurate? Okay.
That was my
I'll second that.
So a motion is made. Recommendation has been made and seconded, made by Mr. Newman and seconded by Ms. Wilson to revisit. Any more discussion on? All in favor, say aye. Aye. And that recommendation would be carried. Thank you.
And as always, if you think of anything when you get on the drive home, let us know that what we need to pull together to get to you.
I'd just like to say I'm really happy that we were able to have this special meeting and not have to add it on to our regular meeting, because it's so detailed and so new to all of us. I think it was very worthwhile.
If I can just add on to that, a brief comment editorial. Kudos to the county and the county staff. This is not an easy process, and it is new to the county. And it's unique in that there are a lot of specific legal requirements that need to be addressed. And it is a tedious process. And because you are essentially creating a new municipal entity, it's an important process. And I give the county and staff a lot of kudos for your work on this. So well done.
Okay, then we skip number 9
Correct, not needed.
and go on to number 10. Work on findings of facts, and we can do that then at that meeting then also.
Correct.
If I can jump in here too, just to
Yep.
give you a little preview of what that fun exercise will look like. It is your findings of fact and conclusions of law is a very detailed legal document. It's going to really look like a pleading in a litigation matter. And it is an exercise that I will guide you through in terms of making your findings of fact. Some of it may seem duplicative, and it is, but it has to be in certain sections in order for us to check all of those legal boxes. So, you know, in anticipation of that next meeting, we will have, well, and I have a draft now, but, you know, obviously, given the committee's discussions and how we're going to change the report, it's going to change. And what that document is going to be is also a recommendation to the board. So we're going to walk through the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and proposed decision as a committee, but it's not going to be your findings of fact, conclusions of law, and decision. It's going to be the recommendation to the board. But I think it's very important that we still go through that very fun exercise of walking through that document.
And we will have Rebecca at our side on the 11th.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Number 11, future agenda items. Anything there? The correspondence and reports from conferences and meetings, anything at all? If not, we'll go right to number 13 and we are adjourned. Thank you. Everybody have a
everyone.
great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.